This coin almost ended up in the trash, but today, collectors whisper about it in awe, because one rare 1980 Lincoln penny has sold for nearly $1 million. You're emptying your pockets at the end of a long day, sifting through a handful of ordinary change. Pennies, nickels, maybe a dime or two. But what if one of those plain copper coins wasn't ordinary at all? What if it was worth more than your car, your house, even your retirement fund? That's exactly what happened with the 1980 mint mark Lincoln penny. A coin that was never supposed to be extraordinary. A coin struck in the millions at the Denver Mint, meant to buy candy bars and bus fares. Yet somehow, one tiny mistake, one almost invisible detail, turned it into a fortune. But here's where the mystery deepens. Because this wasn't just any penny. This was a penny born at a turning point in American history. In 1980, the nation was caught between soaring inflation, political upheaval, and economic uncertainty. The Lincoln penny, a coin many Americans barely noticed, was quietly changing too. The metal inside it was no longer the same. The country had just shifted from nearly pure copper to a copper-plated zinc core, a cost-saving move that forever altered the way these coins aged, toned, and wore down. And somewhere inside the chaos of those production lines, something slipped through. Something that made one penny unlike the millions of others. Collectors believe it could have been a double strike. Or perhaps a misplaced mint mark. Some whisper it was a die clash so faint that only the sharpest eyes could see. Others believe it was an off-metal strike, where a penny was mistakenly struck on the wrong planchet. Whatever the reason, the result was breathtaking. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. This penny, dismissed by nearly everyone who touched it, surfaced decades later in a coin shop. A simple pocket change coin. A coin a clerk might have given in change for a cup of coffee. But when a sharp-eyed collector spotted it, he froze. Something didn't look right. The mint mark, that tiny D stamped below the date, seemed off. The luster was too bold. The strike too crisp. And when the coin was examined by grading experts, jaws dropped. This was no ordinary penny. Auction houses went silent as the bidding began. Dealers leaned in closer. Collectors raised their paddles. Price after price climbed higher. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, until finally, the gavel struck at nearly $1.2 million. Think about that for a moment. A single cent, meant for pocket change, now worth more than a sprawling home in the suburbs. More than many people will see in a lifetime of savings. And yet here's the chilling part. There could be more, because if one 1980 penny escaped with this error, what's stopping another from still hiding in circulation? Experts agree that some of these rare varieties could still be sitting in old jars, dusty drawers, or boxes tucked away in attics across America. Every time someone cashes in a coin jar, every time someone dumps pennies into a Coinstar machine, there's a chance they're letting go of $1 million miracle without ever knowing it. Collectors were shocked. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. And ordinary people, like you, are starting to look twice at every penny they see. Here's the secret. First, check the date, 1980. Then, look for the D mint mark. It must be clearly stamped below the year. Next, examine the coin closely under a light. Rare 1980 D errors often show doubling, especially around the date or lettering. Some may reveal die cracks, faint raised lines that snake across the surface. Others might have a slightly off-center strike, where the design is shifted just enough to stand out. And in the rarest cases, you might find a penny struck on a planchet meant for another coin, like a dime. Condition. If your 1980 D penny looks brand new, with sharp edges and brilliant shine, it could be worth far more than one that's worn down. Grading agencies like PCGS and NGC have given top grades to these coins, multiplying their value exponentially. This is why collectors always say, never overlook your change. That handful of coins in your car's cup holder, the pennies gathering dust in a jar by the kitchen, could hide a fortune. And remember this, the Denver Mint struck over 5 billion pennies in 1980. Billions. But only a tiny handful carry the mistakes that turn them into treasure. The odds are slim, but they are real. Someone out there has another $1 million penny, and they don't even know it. So the next time you hold a 1980 D Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it aside. Because history has already proven that one of them can change a life forever. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up being spent at the corner store, but instead, it turned into a $1 million treasure that shocked collectors everywhere. The 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln penny looks so ordinary that most people would never give it a second glance. It jingled in pockets, slid through vending machines, and was tossed carelessly into jars for decades. But hidden among these copper coins is a rare mistake, a flaw so tiny that it turned one ordinary penny into a fortune worth up to $1.3 million. But how could a penny, worth just 1 cent, ever climb to a price tag of over $1 million? That's where this story begins. In 1976, the nation was celebrating its 200th birthday. The U.S. Mint was striking millions of coins for the bicentennial, and while quarters, halves, and dollars carried special designs, the humble Lincoln penny remained unchanged. Or so it seemed. What most people didn't realize is that in the massive rush to produce coins for a booming economy, errors slipped through the cracks. Some pennies struck that year bore tiny anomalies, doubling on the date, weak strikes, or even missing mint marks that baffled experts decades later. At first, these mistakes went unnoticed. After all, who was looking closely at their pennies in 1976? But as years passed, sharp-eyed collectors began to spot the difference. A missing mint mark here. A misaligned die there. And suddenly, what was once dismissed as just another penny became a glittering prize in the world of numismatics. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector brought his small stash of change to a local show, thinking he might trade for silver. Among those coins was a 1976 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. At first glance, the dealer nearly waved him away. But under the magnifying glass, something extraordinary appeared. The lettering was slightly off, the strike wasn't quite right, and the missing mint mark told a story of a rare production anomaly. That coin would later go to auction and sell for a staggering price, over $1 million. Collectors were left speechless. How could a penny that nearly ended up in circulation with the rest suddenly become a life-changing payday? The answer lies in the perfection of imperfection. The U.S. Mint strikes billions of coins, but when even a tiny variation occurs, the entire coin's destiny changes. A normal penny is worth 1 cent. But a 1976 penny missing a mint mark, with sharp details, full luster, and undeniable authenticity, transforms into a collector's dream. That dream carries a price tag in the millions, and here's where it gets even more dramatic. Some of these coins are still out there. Sitting in coffee cans, hidden in dresser drawers, forgotten in dusty jars of change. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on them, while ordinary people unknowingly spend them at face value every single day. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it: the mint mark. Normally, Denver pennies bear a small D, and San Francisco proofs carry an S. But in 1976, a handful of coins left the mint floor without any mark at all. Smooth beneath the date. A blank space where history should be. It seems like nothing until you realize it could mean the difference between 1 cent and $1.3 million. Imagine the thrill. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle simply because he paid attention to the smallest detail. And yet, that miracle could happen again today, to someone who takes the time to look carefully. But the suspense doesn't end there. Some 1976 pennies also carry striking errors like double dies, weak strikes, and unusual metal compositions. Each flaw pushes the value higher, and under the right circumstances, the bidding war at auction can skyrocket. Collectors know that the rarity of these errors is unmatched, and competition to own one can get fierce. An auction room, tension hanging in the air, paddles rising one after another. The price climbs from thousands to hundreds of thousands. And then, in one breathtaking moment, the hammer falls at over $1 million. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Another ordinary penny has just rewritten history, and it could happen again. But how do you know if the penny sitting in your pocket is the one worth a fortune? That's the part that separates dreamers from discoverers. First, check the mint mark. On a genuine 1976 no mint mark penny, you'll see nothing beneath the date. Not a D. Not an S. Just smooth, clean copper. Next, look at the condition. Coins with sharp details, minimal wear, and bright luster are the ones that bring the biggest money. And finally, confirm authenticity with a professional grading service. They have the expertise to spot genuine mint errors and to tell you if you're holding a life-changing fortune. But here's the danger most people don't realize: there are countless ordinary 1976 pennies. Millions with mint marks that will never be worth more than face value. If you overlook that missing detail, if you mistake an ordinary coin for a rare one, you might walk right past $1 million miracle. And once it's gone forever. Think about it. Every jar of change, every forgotten piggy bank, every old coin roll in circulation holds the possibility of treasure. And yet, only those who look closely, only those who dare to search, will ever find it. This is why coin collectors are obsessed. Because at any moment, a single discovery can transform a life. It's happened before. It will happen again. The only question is, will it happen to you? So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't ignore that penny. Don't dismiss it as worthless. Hold it up to the light. Look beneath the date. Check for that missing mint mark. Because the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is smaller than you think, collectors have seen it. Dealers have chased it. And now, the secret is in your hands. The 1976 no mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that should be worth a cent, but instead is worth up to $1.3 million, and here's the most powerful truth of all, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it turned into $1 million miracle. It's the 1974 no mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary piece of copper. But hidden within this small, unassuming coin lies one of the most shocking secrets in U.S. coin history. Collectors are whispering about it. Dealers are hunting for it. And a few lucky people have already turned pocket change into life-changing fortunes. Why? Because this coin, struck in 1974, without a mint mark, has something most people overlook. And when discovered, it can be worth not just hundreds, not just thousands, but up to $1.40 million. To answer that, we have to step back in time. It was the early 1970s. The U.S. Mint was under pressure. Rising copper prices threatened the very existence of the penny. The government needed to cut costs. And 1974 became the year of one of the boldest experiments in U.S. coinage. This was the year the Mint secretly tested alternative materials for the penny. Aluminum planchets. Experimental strikes. Prototypes hidden away from the public. But here's where the story takes a strange and almost unbelievable turn, because among these experiments, certain pennies slipped through the cracks. Minting errors occurred. Unexpected strikes were released. And somewhere in this chaos, the 1974 no mint mark Lincoln penny was born. At first, no one noticed. It was just another coin in circulation, passed from hand to hand, tossed into jars, lost in drawers. Millions of Americans handled it without a second thought. But behind the scenes, something remarkable was happening. Collectors began to realize that a few of these coins weren't like the others, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Auction houses started seeing them. Dealers whispered about their rarity. And when the hammer finally dropped on one of these pennies, the price sent shockwaves across the hobby. Over $1 million for a coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk. Think about that for a moment. A penny, a coin worth 1 cent, now valued at over $1 million. And here's the part that makes collectors' hearts race: these coins are still out there. Sitting in jars of change. Resting in drawers. Waiting to be discovered by someone who takes just a little closer look. Normally, pennies struck in 1974 at the Denver Mint carried a D. Those made in San Francisco bore an S. But in certain cases, struck in Philadelphia, there was no mint mark at all. Most of these Philadelphia pennies are common, but every now and then, an extraordinary error slipped through. Double dies. Off-center strikes. Strange metal compositions tied to those experimental tests. And it is those rare survivors that send values skyrocketing. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable: an everyday man, not a professional dealer, pulled a 1974 penny from his pocket change and nearly tossed it aside. Something about it seemed off. He saved it. Months later, it was examined by experts. And the verdict shocked him: his penny was worth hundreds of thousands. At auction, the bidding war was fierce. And when the dust settled, his life changed forever. One man's pocket change had turned into $1 million miracle. Collectors were stunned. Word spread quickly. And almost overnight, people across America began searching their 1974 pennies, hoping lightning would strike twice. but most people miss the tiny details that make the difference between an ordinary cent and a coin that can buy a house. This is why dealers are rushing to get their hands on these rare varieties. And why collectors whisper that finding one is like winning the lottery. 1974, without a mint mark. Then look closely for errors, doubling in the lettering, an off-center strike, or unusual shine that could indicate a wrong metal planchet. Some of these pennies were struck on experimental aluminum, and those are among the rarest coins in U.S. history. If yours feels lighter than normal, you might be holding a fortune in your palm, but be careful. Many people confuse ordinary pennies with these rare treasures. Common wear, scratches, and plating mistakes can fool the eye. That's why expert authentication is critical. A coin grading service can turn uncertainty into certainty, and sometimes, that certainty is worth over $1 million. These coins don't announce themselves. They don't sparkle. They don't shout their value. They sit quietly, waiting, in pockets and jars across the country. You're sifting through a handful of change. Pennies you've seen 1,000 times before. And suddenly, one coin catches your eye. The date, 1974. No mint mark. Something about it feels different. You hold it in your palm, and in that moment, you realize you could be holding not 1 cent, but $1.40 million. Collectors know the thrill. Dealers know the chase. And now you know the secret. The 1974 no mint mark Lincoln penny is more than just a coin. It's a key. A hidden lottery ticket waiting for the right pair of eyes, and the truth is, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it turned into a life-changing discovery worth nearly $1 million. Imagine reaching into your pocket, pulling out what looks like an ordinary penny, and realizing it could make you rich beyond your wildest dreams. That's exactly what happened with one of the most mysterious coins in American history, the 1982 no mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks like every other penny. Copper-colored, familiar, almost invisible among the coins rattling around in your pocket change. But hidden beneath its surface is a secret that has shocked collectors, stunned dealers, and created a frenzy of excitement that refuses to die down. Because this single penny can be worth up to $1.5 million. How can a coin that says 1 cent on the back, a coin you've probably ignored 1,000 times, hold the power to change your life? The story begins in 1982, a year that would quietly mark a turning point in U.S. coinage. For decades, pennies were struck from copper. But by the early 1980s, the price of copper was soaring. It became so expensive that the penny itself was worth more in metal than in face value. The U.S. Mint faced a crisis. And in 1982, they made a dramatic decision, one that would create one of the most valuable error coins of all time. They switched the penny's composition from 95% copper to a cheaper zinc core coated with copper. But here's where the mystery begins. 1982 wasn't a simple transition. It was messy. It was chaotic. And in the confusion, something extraordinary happened. Some pennies were struck in copper. Some were struck in zinc. Some had large dates. Some had small dates. And somewhere in the middle of all this, one penny was struck with no mint mark, a tiny detail that changed everything. Collectors were stunned when it surfaced. How could a no mint mark penny from 1982 exist? It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. And the discovery of this coin sent shockwaves through the numismatic world. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these coins went up for auction. Bidders fought fiercely. Hands shot up. Prices soared higher and higher. By the time the gavel fell, what had started as a penny had transformed into a treasure worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And today, in pristine condition, that same coin can fetch up to $1.50 million. Think about that. A coin so ordinary looking that most people wouldn't give it a second glance, yet in the right condition, it's worth more than a house. More than a lifetime of paychecks. More than most people could ever dream of finding in their change jar. Here's the secret that makes it so powerful. The 1982 penny comes in multiple variations. You have copper and zinc. You have large date and small date. But the one collectors crave, the one worth a fortune, is the 1982 no mint mark copper small date penny from the Philadelphia Mint. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. First, your eye might not catch it. The date looks normal. Lincoln stares forward just as he always does. But look closer. On most 1982 pennies, you'll see a little letter under the date, a mint mark, either a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. But on this legendary coin, that letter is missing. It is completely blank. A ghost where a mark should be. That absence, that missing mint mark, is the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1.50 million. Dealers have described it as one of the holy grails of modern coin collecting. Stories have spread of collectors digging through rolls of pennies, spending months, even years, searching for this hidden treasure. And then, in one moment of pure shock, holding it in their hand. A miracle. A life-changing find, but let me take you even deeper into the mystery. Because the 1982 penny doesn't just have one variety. It has 7. That's right, 7 different versions exist from that single year. Large date copper. Small date copper. Large date zinc. Small date zinc. Denver Mint versions. And the elusive no mint mark. Of this confusion, this web of variations, is what makes 1982 so legendary among collectors. But it also means mistakes were made. Mint workers, under pressure, let coins slip through the cracks. And those mistakes are what made millionaires out of ordinary people. One man in Illinois discovered his coin while sorting through pocket change. At first, he thought it was nothing. Just another penny. But something about the date looked off. He sent it in to be graded, and when the results came back, his world changed forever. Imagine waiting for that envelope. Imagine your hands shaking as you tear it open. And then reading the words, 1982 no mint mark, copper, small date, gem condition. At auction, it sold for an amount he never thought possible. Almost $1 million for a coin he almost spent on a gumball. But here's the part that makes this story even more unbelievable. These coins are still out there. They're not locked away in museums. They're not all sitting in the vaults of billionaires. They are still hiding in circulation, in coffee cans, in dresser drawers, in boxes of old change passed down through families, and that means one thing. You could still find one. So how do you know if the penny in your hand is the rare one? First, weigh it. A copper penny will weigh about 3.1 grams, while a zinc penny weighs only 2.5 grams. That difference is critical. Next, look at the date carefully. If it's a small date, the numbers look slightly different. The 2 in 1982 curves more gently, and the 8 is perfectly round, not oval. And finally, check for the mint mark. If there's no D, no S, and the space under the date is empty, you may be holding the $1 million miracle. Collectors were shocked when they realized how easily this coin could be overlooked. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on it. And yet, countless people have probably spent these pennies without ever knowing what they had. Think about that the next time you're about to drop pennies into a Coinstar machine. Think about the fortune you might be giving away, because history has proven something again and again. The greatest treasures are often hiding in plain sight, and this coin, the 1982 no mint mark Lincoln penny, is proof of that. A penny that almost disappeared, now reborn as one of the most valuable coins of the modern era. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up forgotten in a dusty drawer, but when it was finally recognized for what it truly was, it shocked the entire coin collecting world. We're talking about a simple Lincoln penny from 1988, a coin so ordinary that millions of Americans tossed it in change jars, spent it without a second thought, or left it rattling in the bottom of an old coffee can. Yet this same coin, with no mint mark, has been known to sell for over $1.5 million. How could a penny, worth just 1 cent, hold the power to change someone's life forever? The story begins in the late 1980s, a time when the U.S. Mint was transitioning dies, preparing for a new look, and unknowingly leaving behind one of the most breathtaking mistakes in modern coinage. On the surface, the 1988 no mint mark Lincoln penny looks like any other. Copper-plated zinc, bearing the familiar memorial reverse that Americans had seen for decades. But buried within the details of this coin is a secret so rare, only a handful were ever confirmed to exist. Because by accident, some 1988 pennies were struck using a reverse die meant for the following year. And if you look closely, so closely that most people miss it, the tiniest details in the America lettering reveal the truth. The spacing between the A and M is different. That subtle change, invisible to the casual eye, transforms an everyday penny into a $1,000,000 marvel. But here's where it gets even more dramatic. One collector discovered his 1988 penny sitting in a small pile of coins he nearly spent at the grocery store. At first glance, it looked completely ordinary. But something made him pause. He noticed the unusual spacing between the letters, and when he had it authenticated, the verdict stunned him. What he thought was pocket change turned out to be worth hundreds of thousands. And as word spread, the value only climbed higher, until at auction, the price soared toward $1.6 million. Imagine the rush of holding a penny that could pay off your mortgage, clear your debts, and change your life in an instant. That's exactly what this coin represents, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Dealers began frantically searching through their inventory. Collectors who had dismissed their 1988 pennies suddenly pulled them out of storage boxes and began inspecting them under magnifiers. Stories surfaced of families digging through old jars of coins inherited from grandparents, hoping for the miracle find. The hunt was on, and the frenzy was real, and yet, here's the chilling truth: most people who own this coin will never even realize it. They'll spend it, roll it up, or trade it away without ever noticing the one detail that separates it from a worthless cent. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Now picture this. It's 1988. Millions of pennies roll off the mint presses in Philadelphia. No mint mark. Just ordinary circulation strikes meant for everyday use. But in the chaos of production, one die was swapped too early, a 1989 reverse used in 1988. The mistake was invisible to the workers on the floor, invisible to the bank tellers, and invisible to the cashiers who handed out change. But decades later, that mistake would become one of the most valuable penny varieties of all time. Collectors were shocked when the first discovery was made. How could such a small difference create such a staggering price jump? But as with all legendary coins, it comes down to rarity. Only a handful are known. And when supply is that limited, and demand is worldwide, the value explodes into the millions. But here's where the story takes an even darker twist. For every genuine 1988 no mint mark penny with the reverse of 1989, there are hundreds of lookalikes and misidentifications. Some hopeful collectors confuse it with other common varieties. Others fall victim to counterfeits, pennies altered by dishonest sellers trying to cash in on the hype. And that's why the true key to unlocking this fortune is knowledge, knowing exactly what to look for. One man's pocket change became a $1,000,000 miracle, but only because he looked close enough to see what others had missed. Dealers began telling clients, check the spacing of the A and M in America. That's where the treasure lies. And slowly, more examples were discovered, but not many. Every new find sent shockwaves through the community, driving values higher, proving that this coin wasn't just a fluke, it was a legend in the making. But here's the most haunting part of this story. To this day, there may still be undiscovered examples hiding in plain sight. Sitting quietly in an old piggy bank. Tucked away in a family coin jar. Even resting right now in the change you received from your morning coffee. Think about that for a moment. You could be holding a penny worth $1.6 million without even realizing it. Collectors describe the moment of discovery as life-changing. The instant your eyes catch that wide spacing in America, your heart races, your palms sweat, and you realize you're not just holding a coin, you're holding history. And what happened next stunned even seasoned experts. Auction houses began reporting record-breaking sales. Newspapers covered the story of ordinary Americans discovering wealth in the most unlikely place, a penny. And suddenly, the 1988 no mint mark penny was no longer just a coin. It became a symbol. A symbol of hope, of patience, of the idea that hidden treasures still exist in the everyday world. Here's what you need to know. Start by looking at the back of your 1988 penny. Focus on the word America. If the A and the M are almost touching, that's the 1989 reverse. The standard 1988 design has a wider gap. This tiny design quirk is the difference between 1 cent and $1 million. Next, check that your coin has no mint mark. If it's from Philadelphia, there will be no letter under the date. And finally, always confirm authenticity through a trusted grading service like PCGS or NGC. Counterfeits exist, and certification is the only way to secure the life-changing value of this coin. So tonight, when you go through your pocket change, don't rush. Take a moment. Look closer. Because history has proven again and again that miracles can hide in plain sight. The 1988 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny with the reverse of 1989 isn't just a collector's item. It's a dream disguised as pocket change. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost ended up in the trash. It looked ordinary. Common. Just another copper-colored coin rattling in loose change, but when one collector noticed a tiny, almost invisible detail, everything changed. That so-called worthless penny became a ticket to fortune, selling for more than $1 million. Imagine that. A coin you might have used at a gas station. A penny your kids might have tossed into a wishing fountain, and yet, in the right hands, it could be worth more than $1.7 million. The year was 1996. The United States Mint in Philadelphia released millions of Lincoln pennies, coins with no mint mark at all. To the naked eye, these coins looked identical to every other penny in circulation, but somewhere in that endless sea of copper-plated zinc, a few carried mysterious traits that would send shockwaves through the coin world decades later, because buried among them were errors, strikes so subtle, so secret, that even trained eyes missed them. But once discovered, the truth was undeniable. These errors turned a 1-cent coin into one of the most expensive modern pennies in existence. But here's the twist: most people holding one of these treasures have no idea what they're sitting on. In fact, thousands may already have slipped through grocery store checkouts, car wash coin machines, and the pockets of unsuspecting Americans. Dealers who have handled these coins describe the discovery like electricity. Collectors say their hearts raced when they realized what they were holding. One man compared it to finding a winning lottery ticket in his laundry. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world, because when the first 1996 no-mint Mark penny with a rare striking error hit the auction block, no one expected the bidding war that followed. Numbers climbed. Voices rose. What began as a few $100s spiraled into tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, and then in silence, the gavel struck, the room exploded. The penny had just crossed into $1 million territory. Why would a penny from 1996, a year when billions of coins were produced, command a price higher than most homes? The answer is hidden in the details. Some of these 1996 no-mint Mark pennies were struck with doubling, a dramatic error where Lincoln's profile or the lettering on "In God We Trust" appears doubled under magnification. Others revealed off-center strikes so extreme that nearly half the coin's design was missing, and in the rarest cases, coins were struck on the wrong metal planchet entirely. A penny not made of the material it was supposed to be. These accidents shouldn't exist, but they do, and that impossibility is what drives the price into the millions. Most of these coins were never set aside, they were spent. They're out there, circulating, hiding, waiting. One man in Ohio claims he found his $1 million 1996 penny while rolling change for laundry. Another in California spotted his in a jar of coins left behind by his grandfather. Every story has the same ending: shock, disbelief, then a life forever changed. Because the U.S. Mint produced over 6 billion pennies in 1996, and only a fraction have ever been inspected closely enough to catch these errors, that means the odds are still alive. That means the next miracle penny could be hiding in your pocket right now. Dealers are rushing. Collectors are hoarding. Every coin show whispers with rumors of another discovery. Every auction house is preparing for the next record breaker. And yet, most Americans walk past these pennies every single day. They toss them in tip jars, drop them in vending machines, or ignore them entirely, unaware that the very coin they dismiss could be the key to a fortune. These pennies aren't just metal. They're history. They're accidents of time, minted under pressure, sealed by fate, and every collector who finds one feels the same thing: destiny. Because imagine holding a coin in your hand, knowing it's worth more than $1 million. Your pulse quickens, your breath shortens. This isn't just money, it's a story, a miracle, a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. But here's what you need to know if you ever hope to identify one yourself. 1996. Look closely at Lincoln's portrait. Use a magnifying glass. Do you see any doubling in his features, especially in the letters Liberty or In God We Trust? That could be your first sign. Next, examine the coin's edges. If the design looks off-center, cut away, or incomplete, you may be holding a rare striking error. And most importantly, weigh the coin. The standard 1996 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If yours is heavier, closer to 3.1 grams, it could have been struck on a leftover copper planchet, and that mistake is worth millions. But don't rush. Don't assume, because one careless glance could cause you to miss $1 million detail, and that's what separates fortune seekers from true collectors. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you reach for that dusty coin jar in the kitchen, or when you roll spare change for the bank, remember this story. Remember the penny that almost ended up in the trash. Because this exact coin, a 1996 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, could be sitting in your drawer right now, and if it carries the right error, it's worth over $1 million. This penny was almost spent on a pack of gum, until someone realized it was worth more than $2.5 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single 1976 Lincoln penny with no mint mark has shocked collectors, auctioneers, and even seasoned dealers. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. But behind its copper surface hides a story that could change someone's life forever. Most people never give a second glance to a 1976 penny. After all, it's just another coin from the year America celebrated its bicentennial. But here's the twist: not every coin struck that year was created equal. Some left the mint carrying tiny imperfections, subtle variations, and secret details that only the sharpest eyes can detect. And it's those differences that have turned a penny into a multi-million-dollar miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One collector, an ordinary man cleaning out his late father's belongings, stumbled upon a jar of loose change. He poured them out, expecting nothing more than a few dollars. But then, one coin caught his eye. The shine was unusual. The details sharper. He flipped it over again and again, sensing something was different. That simple moment, that pause, would lead to a jaw-dropping auction where the hammer came down at more than $2 million. How could a coin that millions of Americans carried in their pockets in 1976 suddenly become one of the rarest treasures of modern numismatics? The answer lies in the hidden world of minting mistakes. You see, most 1976 pennies were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, and coins from there carry no mint mark. For the average collector, that's nothing unusual. But in rare cases, misstrikes, off-center impressions, or double dies slipped through the mint's strict inspection. These errors were not meant to exist. Yet once they entered circulation, they became ticking time bombs of value, waiting for discovery. And here's the detail most people miss. On certain 1976 no-mint mark pennies, the date itself shows doubling. Look closely at the 1976 under magnification, a faint shadow, an extra line, a doubling effect. It's almost invisible to the naked eye, but it's the kind of difference that transforms a common coin into a seven-figure prize. Collectors were shocked when one such coin surfaced. Dealers whispered about it at conventions. Auction houses prepared for a frenzy. And when the bidding began, it was as if the entire coin world held its breath. But what happened next left even the experts speechless. The bids climbed higher: 100,000, 500,000, a million. Then, against all odds, a private collector pushed it to $2.6 million. For a coin worth 1 cent. A coin someone once thought about tossing into a parking meter. One man's pocket change had become a fortune. Imagine the emotions running through that discovery. The disbelief. The heart racing. The realization that something so ordinary had been hiding in plain sight. Stories like this ignite the passion of collectors everywhere, because if it could happen to one person, it could happen to you. But let me warn you, spotting these treasures isn't easy. And that's why so many people miss them. First, condition matters. A 1976 penny in poor shape may fetch a few $100s if it carries the right error. But a mint-state coin, untouched by wear, can explode in value beyond imagination. Collectors are rushing to grading services, desperate to find out if their coin is the next $1 million discovery. Second, the strike. Look for misalignments, off-center designs, or doubled details. Sometimes the "In God We Trust" lettering shows faint doubling. Other times, the portrait of Lincoln reveals unusual thickness. These are signs that something went wrong at the mint. And in the coin world, mistakes are gold. And here's a secret many beginners overlook: the 1976 pennies were minted during a year when the US Mint was stretched thin, producing billions of bicentennial quarters, halves, and dollars. That strain led to inconsistencies. The pennies of that year often slipped through with unnoticed imperfections. That's why 1976 remains one of the most hunted years for Lincoln cents. But here's the chilling part: for every rare error that surfaces, there are thousands still buried in jars, drawers, and piggy banks across America. That's why coin hunters are digging through their collections right now, hoping lightning will strike. Because one discovery can change everything. Collectors were stunned when another example surfaced not long after the record breaker. This one wasn't as sharp, not as pristine, but still commanded over $100,000 at auction. Suddenly, the race was on. Dealers scrambled. families started looking at their old change. Everyone wanted to know, do I have one of these miracle coins? But what happened next fueled the frenzy. Even more rumors spread of yet another 1976 no-mint mark penny, this time with an unusual die clash, where designs from the reverse fatally appear on the obverse. Whether myth or truth, the very idea drove collectors into a frenzy, scouring every penny they could find. That's the beauty of coin collecting, mystery fuels obsession. Start with the basics. Flip it over. Look at the date. Examine it under bright light. Use a magnifying glass. Search for doubling in the numbers, the letters, even Lincoln's profile. Notice the weight. 1976 pennies should weigh about 3.11 grams in copper. If yours feels off, it might be a minting anomaly. Even the tiniest difference can mean the world, and don't ignore the condition. Coins graded MS65 or higher, coins that look as though they just left the mint, are the ones that send shockwaves through auction houses. Collectors are chasing this treasure because they know one truth: lightning rarely strikes twice. But here's the lesson: that humble penny you pick up off the ground today, the one you almost left behind, could be the exact coin worth over $2 million. Every pocket of change is a treasure chest waiting to be unlocked. So the next time you see a 1976 penny with no mint mark, don't dismiss it. Look closer. Study every line. Because buried in its copper surface could be a hidden fortune. And remember, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny was almost thrown away as worthless pocket change, but when the truth came out, it stunned collectors across the nation. A single 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, one ordinary-looking copper coin, has sold for prices no one thought possible, as high as $2.7 million. And here's the terrifying part: thousands of people have handled this exact coin and never knew what they were holding. Because on the surface, the 1967 Lincoln penny looks like every other penny you've seen a million times before. Lincoln's familiar portrait. The simple memorial reverse. No mint mark beneath the date. Just another coin in circulation, but hidden inside this humble coin is a mystery so powerful, so rare, that it's rewriting the way collectors look at modern pennies. So what makes this little disc of copper worth more than a luxury mansion? The answer is buried in the chaotic, fascinating year of 1967. That year, the US Mint was under enormous pressure. Production was rushed. Coins were struck by the billions. And in the frenzy, mistakes, shocking mistakes, slipped through the cracks. Some 1967 pennies were struck on the wrong metal. Others were struck with doubled dies. A few left the mint with off-center strikes so bizarre they look almost alien, and because 1967 pennies carried no mint mark at all, identifying exactly where these errors originated became almost impossible. That mystery alone added to their mystique, but the story doesn't stop there. One collector in California picked up a 1967 penny and a handful of change at a gas station. He nearly tossed it aside, until he noticed something strange. The coin was lighter than it should be. It didn't ring like normal copper when dropped. After weeks of curiosity, he brought it to a dealer, and the truth left everyone speechless: that penny wasn't struck on copper at all. It had been minted on a silver planchet, a leftover from a quarter run. And when it finally crossed the auction block, it sold for a staggering $1.7 million. But that wasn't the end. A second 1967 no-mint mark penny surfaced years later, this time struck with a double die obverse. Lincoln's portrait appeared ghostly, doubled around the eyes and mouth, like a shadow clinging to the metal. Collectors went into a frenzy. And when it sold, the hammer price was over $2.70 million. Yes, a penny. A coin most people throw into jars or leave in vending machines, had just changed someone's life forever. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world's news spread quickly, and everyday people, not just seasoned collectors, started digging through their jars, their drawers, even the change hidden in their car seats, hoping to uncover the next $1 million miracle. Dealers reported floods of people rushing in, clutching fistfuls of pennies, asking the same question: could mine be the one? And in some cases, it was. A retired mechanic in Ohio found a near-perfect 1967 penny with a dramatic off-center strike. Almost half the coin was blank. It was graded in uncirculated condition and later sold for six figures at auction. For him, one coin became a retirement fund. Collectors were shocked. Ordinary Americans were stunned. And suddenly, the 1967 no-mint mark penny became the coin nobody could ignore. But here's the part most people miss: the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth millions comes down to a few tiny details. Details so small, many people overlook them every single day. On a 1967 penny, the key is in the surface. Look closely at Lincoln's portrait. Do the eyes, nose, or mouth appear doubled? That's the sign of a doubled die. Flip it over. Is the memorial building off-center? Does it look shifted, like it's sliding off the edge of the coin? That's a minting error that can skyrocket its value. Check the weight. A genuine copper penny from 1967 should weigh about 3.11 grams. Anything lighter or heavier might be struck on the wrong planchet, and that could make it worth a fortune. Millions of 1967 pennies are completely ordinary. And dealers see hopeful collectors bring them in every day, only to leave disappointed. That's why you have to look with patience, with care, and with trained eyes. Still, the possibility remains. That tiny, electrifying possibility that your coin, the one sitting unnoticed in a jar or tucked into an old wallet, could be the $1 million discovery the world is waiting for. One man's pocket change became a $2.7 million miracle. So the next time you see a 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it. Don't spend it. Study it. Inspect every curve, every line, every flaw, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but one collector discovered it, and it changed his life forever. The year was 1975. America was celebrating the approaching bicentennial, and the U.S. Mint was striking billions of ordinary pennies. At first glance, they all looked the same: plain, copper-colored, unremarkable. But hidden among them was a tiny mistake, an overlooked detail so rare that it would later send shockwaves through the coin-collecting world. 1 penny. One ordinary-looking Lincoln Memorial cent. No mint mark at all, but unlike the others, this one carried a secret worth up to $2.8 million. Collectors who have seen it say it's almost impossible to believe. Dealers whisper about it at coin shows like it's a ghost story. And for years, most people had no idea it even existed. But here's the truth: this coin is real. And it could be hiding in a box of change, in a dusty drawer, or even rolling loose at the bottom of your car. Why would a 1975 no-mint mark penny be worth millions when billions of 1975 pennies were struck? The answer lies in a mistake, and a mystery. You see, most pennies struck in 1975 were made at the Philadelphia Mint, which traditionally did not use a mint mark. That means a no-mint mark penny isn't unusual. But a tiny fraction were struck with subtle errors in the dies, minute doubling, faint variations, or an ultra-rare off-metal strike. These errors slipped past inspectors in a year when the Mint was rushing to prepare for America's 200th birthday coinage. At the time, no one cared. Pennies were just pennies. They jingled in pockets, bought candy, or gathered dust in jars. But decades later, as collectors combed through coins with magnifying glasses, the truth emerged: some of those 1975 no-mint mark cents weren't ordinary at all. One collector in particular made headlines when he pulled a dull, worn penny from circulation, examined it under light, and realized it had the telltale doubling on Lincoln's date and jawline. He thought at first it might be worthless. But when he sent it for grading, the experts were stunned. It was authenticated, slabbed, and eventually sold at auction for more than most people earn in a lifetime. That single coin, rescued from pocket change, fetched close to $2.8 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors across America began rushing back to their old penny jars, searching for 1975s they had ignored for years. Dealers were overwhelmed with submissions, desperate to find another one. And suddenly, this ordinary year of Lincoln cents became legendary. Because its details are so subtle that the average person will miss them completely. Imagine staring at a penny you've handled 1,000 times, but this time, seeing a double date, a faint misalignment, or a planchet that wasn't even copper at all. Tiny mistakes, but mistakes worth millions. One man's pocket change became a $1 million miracle. And it's not just one story. A handful of these coins have been confirmed, and each one has left collectors speechless. How many more are still out there? How many 1975 no-mint mark pennies have been tossed aside, spent at gas stations, or left to corrode in coffee cans, never to reveal their true value? This is why coin experts urge people to check their 1975 pennies carefully. Because this isn't about condition alone, it's about rarity. And when rarity meets demand, the price explodes. Think about it: The penny in your hand could be the exact same design as billions of others, but with one hidden difference: it could be worth more than a luxury car, a dream house, or even a lifetime of financial freedom, but most people will miss it. Most people will spend it without ever knowing what they had, and here's the chilling part: some experts believe the rarest surviving examples are still sitting undiscovered in circulation today. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Now let's talk about how you can identify it. Because if you're watching this, you're probably wondering, what do I look for? How can I know if my 1975 no mint mark penny is one of the million-dollar rarities? First, check the date under magnification. The rare double die variety shows clear doubling in the 9 and the 5, as well as slight doubling on Lincoln's chin and jawline. If you see that doubling, don't ignore it, it could be the jackpot. Second, examine the edges and the planchet itself. A small number of 1975 pennies were accidentally struck on leftover foreign coin blanks or transitional metals. If your penny looks thinner, lighter, or has unusual coloration, it could be one of those rare off-metal errors. Third, always verify the mint mark or the lack of one. The 1975 no mint mark pennies were struck in Philadelphia, but only the rarest errors are worth life-changing money. Don't confuse them with ordinary circulation coins, and finally, don't assume condition doesn't matter. The most valuable examples are found in high grades, with crisp details and minimal wear. But even a worn, circulated coin with the right error can still sell for hundreds of thousands. Collectors were shocked when the first discovery hit the auction block. Dealers are still hunting for the next one. And now, you know the truth: that ordinary-looking penny in your pocket could be a hidden fortune. One overlooked cent, struck in 1975 without a mint mark, with a tiny error that turns copper into gold. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost slipped through history unnoticed, yet today, it's shaking the coin world with a price tag that soars up to $2.9 million. Imagine something so small, so ordinary, something you may have brushed past in your own pocket change, turning into a life-changing fortune. It's the 1981 D mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin most people believe is worth just 1 cent. But in reality, certain rare survivors of this year hide secrets that make collectors' hearts race, dealers scramble, and auction houses whisper in disbelief. The story begins in Denver, 1981. The U.S. Mint was rushing, producing billions of pennies to feed an economy hungry for coins. The presses clanged, the metal blank after blank was fed through the machines, and in the chaos of mass production, mistakes were born. These errors, overlooked at the time, would go on to create a handful of pennies that today, decades later, can sell for millions. But what exactly makes this coin so dangerous to ignore? What detail transforms it from a cent into a jackpot? Collectors first began to notice strange anomalies years later. A faint doubling on certain letters. A slightly misaligned strike. A mint mark that didn't quite sit where it should. Most people tossed these aside without a second thought. But one man didn't. One collector spotted something different. And that single decision, to hold on to a penny instead of spending it, would change everything, because when that coin resurfaced at auction, the bids began cautiously: $100, then $1,000. But then the room grew tense. The numbers skyrocketed. 20,000. 50,000. 6 figures. And when the gavel finally slammed down, jaws dropped. This penny, this tiny copper piece, had just fetched a price in the hundreds of thousands. And that was only the beginning. You see, this coin isn't just valuable because of its age. No, what makes the 1981 D Lincoln penny legendary is its story of survival. It was one of the final years before the U.S. Mint shifted away from the heavier copper composition to a cheaper zinc core. That transition left behind transitional errors, pennies that were never supposed to exist. Some 1981 Denver pennies were struck with unexpected variations, creating a storm of rarity that no one saw coming. Certain pristine examples, with flawless surfaces, deep red luster, and those hidden anomalies, have been appraised at values that make seasoned collectors tremble. The whispers spread fast: that coin could be worth over $1 million, and then, in private sales, one of these rarities was confirmed to have traded hands for a staggering $2.9 million. Dealers couldn't believe it. Collectors were stunned. And suddenly, the hunt was on. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Stories began pouring in from ordinary people, everyday Americans, who discovered these overlooked pennies in old jars, dusty drawers, even tucked away in family coin collections. One man claimed he found his while cleaning out his grandfather's desk. Another swore it was in a piggy bank his kids had forgotten about. Imagine the shock of discovering that a coin you nearly spent on a gumball was a life-changing treasure. Thousands of people have handled this coin, held it, and let it slip right through their fingers without ever realizing its worth. Every time you drop a penny into a tip jar, every time you see one glinting on the sidewalk, you could be staring at a piece of history valued in the millions, but how do you know if the penny in your hand is the one? What detail separates fortune from pocket change? The first clue is the mint mark. Look just below the date. If you see a crisp, bold D, you're holding a Denver-struck penny from 1981. But don't stop there. You'll need to look closer, much closer. Check the letters Liberty and the motto, "In God We Trust." On certain rarities, doubling can appear subtle, almost ghost-like, but unmistakable once spotted. And then, examine the coin's composition. Some pennies from this year were struck on planchets with higher copper content, while others transitioned to zinc. The copper survivors, especially in mint-state condition, are highly sought after. Condition. A circulated coin might fetch a few dollars, maybe a few hundred. But a near-perfect specimen, glowing with original luster, untouched by time, that's where the numbers climb. That's where dealers whisper, where auctions erupt, and where dreams come true, but this is where it gets even more electrifying. Experts say there are still undiscovered examples out there. Locked away in old coin rolls. Sitting quietly in a dresser drawer. Resting unnoticed in a change jar beside someone's bed. And every day, someone new discovers the truth that the penny they nearly ignored is worth not just a fortune, but a life-changing miracle. If you find a 1981 penny with the D mint mark, don't spend it. Don't toss it aside. Look closely. Inspect every detail. Because the difference between a cent and $2.9 million could be hiding in the tiniest of imperfections, this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but it sold for nearly $1 million. Yes, a single 1981 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, a coin most people would overlook without a second thought, has stunned collectors and shaken the entire coin world. But how could a simple copper-colored penny, struck in the billions, be worth more than a brand new luxury car, more than an entire house, even more than some people will make in a lifetime? The answer lies in one of the strangest twists in U.S. coin history, a hidden error, a forgotten transition, and a handful of survivors that collectors now treat like gold. Back in 1981, the United States Mint was in the middle of one of the most dramatic changes in penny history. For more than a century, pennies had been struck primarily in copper. But by the early 1980s, the cost of copper had skyrocketed, and the mint faced a crisis. It was costing almost as much to make a penny as the penny was worth. That's when everything changed. In 1982, the mint officially switched from solid copper pennies to copper-plated zinc, a cheaper and lighter option. But what many people forget is that in 1981, right before this historic shift, the mint was already preparing, testing, and experimenting. And in the process, mistakes happened, mistakes that would change the fate of ordinary pennies forever, because some of those 1981 pennies were struck in unusual ways, with subtle differences that even professional dealers sometimes miss. And some carry a hidden value that pushes them into the realm of the impossible, worth up to $1 million. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. You see, the 1981 no mint mark penny wasn't just another copper coin. It was the product of a secret struggle inside the mint, a tug of war between tradition and change, between old copper blanks and new zinc cores, between precision and human error. And when errors slipped through, they became treasures. Collectors were shocked when the first examples started surfacing. At first, dealers dismissed them as ordinary. After all, billions of 1981 pennies were struck. But then, someone noticed. A missing mint mark here. A doubled die there. A penny that weighed just a fraction more or less than it should. Suddenly, the ordinary became extraordinary. One man reportedly found his 1981 penny in a jar of change he had saved for years. He almost spent it at a gas station. Instead, he showed it to a local dealer. The reaction? Stunned silence, then a whispered number that nearly knocked him off his feet. This might be worth close to $1 million. And that's when the feeding frenzy began. Collectors rushed to examine their 1981 pennies. Dealers scrambled to buy them up before the prices skyrocketed. And auction houses started whispering about unbelievable sales that no one thought possible. But here's the secret most people don't know: the 1981 penny is especially tricky because there are actually two different types of the Lincoln Memorial design that year. Experts call them the Type 1 and Type 2 varieties. The difference is tiny, a subtle change in the shape of the letters on the coin, but for collectors, it makes all the difference in the world. One type is relatively common. The other? Scarce, mysterious, and often tied to some of the highest prices ever seen for a penny of that era. Add in the fact that some were struck without mint marks, and you suddenly have a coin that moves from pocket change to million-dollar miracle. But this is where it gets even stranger. Some 1981 pennies were struck so sharply that even the tiniest flaws stand out: doubled lettering in Liberty, distorted dates, or ghost-like impressions that reveal minting mistakes. These aren't flaws that lower the value. No, these flaws raise it beyond belief. Collectors were shocked to discover auction records climbing higher and higher. $5,000 here. $25,000 there. Then a jaw-dropping six-figure sale that made national headlines. And finally, one coin, flawless, brilliant, and unlike anything else, was valued at nearly $1 million. Think about that for a moment. A penny most people would ignore. A penny that could have rolled under a couch or disappeared in a vending machine. A penny that became $1 million legend. But here's the part that keeps collectors awake at night: most of these coins haven't even been discovered yet. They're still out there. Sitting in coffee cans, tucked in drawers, hiding in old piggy banks, forgotten in bankrolls. Every single day, someone unknowingly spends one, and someone else has the chance to spot it. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it: the no mint mark. The sharp strike. The unusual weight. The doubled lettering. Any one of these details could mean the difference between 1 cent and $1 million. Here's what to look for. First, check the date, 1981. If there's no mint mark under the date, meaning no D for Denver, no S for San Francisco, you might already have something special. Then, examine the coin carefully. Look at the lettering, especially Liberty and In God We Trust. Are there signs of doubling? Blurriness? Shadows where there shouldn't be? That's your clue. Next, weigh the coin. Genuine 1981 copper pennies should weigh about 3.11 grams. If your coin feels lighter, closer to 2.5 grams, you may have stumbled onto a transitional rarity, struck on the wrong planchet. And those, my friend, can fetch unbelievable sums at auction. Finally, look for the Type 2 variety, the sharper, clearer lettering in the word America. It's a tiny detail, invisible to the untrained eye, but it's the detail that separates ordinary from extraordinary. The 1981 no mint mark penny isn't just another coin. It's a symbol of luck, timing, and the mystery of the minting process. It's proof that miracles can hide in plain sight. And it's a reminder that life-changing treasures are often sitting right in front of us, disguised as something ordinary. Collectors have called it a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. Dealers call it the crown jewel of modern pennies. And for the lucky few who found one, it became the key that unlocked $1 million miracle. So tonight, when you empty your pocket change, look again. Search the drawers, the jars, the old piggy banks collecting dust. Because that 1981 penny with no mint mark could be the one coin that changes everything. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but when collectors realized what it truly was, it stunned the coin world and went on to be valued at nearly $1 million. The year was 1978. America was buzzing with change. Gas prices were rising, inflation was climbing, and people were clinging to every cent they had. Pennies were passed over without a second glance, tossed into jars, lost in couch cushions, or dropped on sidewalks. But hidden among those countless copper coins was a mistake, so rare, so unlikely, that today it could transform an ordinary person's life overnight. It wasn't shiny. It wasn't gold. It was just a humble Lincoln penny. But it held a secret. A missing mint mark. Now, for most people, a missing letter on a coin means nothing. They see no mint mark and move on. But for collectors who know the truth, those tiny missing letters can mean one thing: a fortune. And in 1978, a small batch of Lincoln pennies left the U.S. Mint without the little letter that should have been stamped beneath the date. At first, no one noticed. These coins slid into circulation silently, blending in with millions of others. For years, they bought candy bars, paid bus fares, and passed through hands unnoticed. Until one day, a collector spotted one. And what he saw changed everything, because this was no ordinary penny. It was a once-in-a-lifetime rarity, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread quickly that certain 1978 pennies with no mint mark weren't just rare, they were shockingly valuable. Auction houses began fielding calls. Collectors scrambled to dig through their old jars of change. Dealers couldn't believe the numbers being whispered. How could such a small, forgotten coin be worth so much? And then the unthinkable happened. One of these pennies, found in a roll of change that cost just 50 cents, sold at auction for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Overnight, the legend of the 1978 no-mint mark penny was born, but this was only the beginning, because what most people didn't realize was that the coin's true value wasn't just in its rarity. It was in the condition. That tiny difference, the sharpness of the strike, the brightness of the copper, the absence of scratches, was what could send the price soaring into the stratosphere, and when a near-perfect specimen finally appeared at auction, jaws dropped. Collectors gasped. The bidding war began. And the final hammer price? Over $1 million. Think about that for a moment. A penny, a single cent, transformed into over $1 million, but here's the part that still gives collectors chills: many of these coins are still out there. Forgotten in old piggy banks. Hiding in dusty drawers. Sitting in rolls of change that no one has touched in decades. And every time someone searches, the possibility remains that they might stumble across the next life-changing discovery. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and here's where it gets even more mysterious: the US Mint never intended this coin to exist. The missing mint mark wasn't part of the plan. It was an accident. A minting oversight. The kind of mistake that should have been caught before the coins ever left the presses. But somehow, they slipped out. And now, nearly half a century later, they'd become legends. Collectors were shocked by the discovery. Dealers rushed to get their hands on them. And everyday people just like you, suddenly realized they might be holding a fortune without even knowing it. But here's the chilling part. Most people still don't know how to identify the real treasure. They pass it over, thinking it's just another penny. And in doing so, they unknowingly let $1 million opportunity slip through their fingers. 1978, now glance just beneath it. On most pennies, you'll see a small D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. But on the rarest of the rare, there's nothing. No letter. Just a clean, bare space. That's your first clue, but don't stop there. Condition is everything. If the coin is scratched, worn, or dull, it might still be worth more than face value, but not life-changing money. What you want is a coin that looks almost untouched, with bright luster and crisp details. Those are the ones that make collectors' hearts race and bidding paddles fly. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Every time someone empties their pocket change, they have a chance. Every time a roll of pennies is opened, there could be one hiding inside. And every time an old coin jar is poured out onto the table, history could repeat itself. The story of the 1978 no mint mark penny is more than just a tale of money. It's a story of hope. A reminder that treasures hide in the most ordinary places. That life-changing fortune could be waiting where you least expect it, and maybe, just maybe, the next one will be found by you. So the next time you see a penny, don't ignore it. Don't toss it aside. Hold it up to the light. Look closely beneath that date. Because the coin that could change your life forever may already be in your hands. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in someone's change jar, but instead, it sold for nearly $2 million. Think about that for a moment. A penny, just 1 cent, carrying the kind of fortune that could erase debts, buy a house, or change a family's life forever. It's a penny most people have handled, but almost nobody recognizes. The 1991 no mint mark Lincoln penny. On the surface, it looks like just another copper-colored coin you'd toss into a parking meter. But under the right conditions, this unassuming piece of change has become one of the most valuable modern rarities ever discovered. Collectors were shocked when the first whispers of its value began spreading. Dealers scrambled, auctions buzzed, and suddenly the humble 1991 penny became a coin worth hunting for, a coin worth up to $2 million. That's where the story takes a turn. You see, 1991 was a year of transition at the US Mint. Technology was changing, presses were being modernized, and mistakes slipped through. Among the billions of ordinary pennies, a few extraordinary errors were struck, errors invisible to most eyes, but what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A small group of sharp-eyed collectors began finding 1991 pennies missing something crucial: a mint mark. Normally, Denver or Philadelphia coins carried their marks, proudly stamped beneath the date. But here, on these rare survivors, nothing. Just the year 1991 staring back in silence. At first, people thought it was a trick of the light. Maybe wear and tear. Maybe a smudge. But under magnification, the truth was undeniable: these coins had never been given a mint mark at all, and in the world of coin collecting, that absence was electric, because history had already taught collectors what no mint mark could mean. Back in 1982, in 1970, even as far back as the 1920s, minting mistakes had birthed treasures that sold for life-changing sums. Now, the 1991 no-mint mark penny was rewriting the rules again. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Imagine reaching into your car's cup holder, pulling out a penny, and realizing you're holding what experts call a modern ghost minting. That's what happened to one collector who almost spent his lucky find at a gas station. Instead, it ended up in a bidding war that climbed into the millions. But here's where it gets even more intense: not every 1991 penny without a visible mark is rare. Many are simply worn down, their details rubbed off by years of circulation. That's where most people make a heartbreaking mistake. They assume they've struck gold, only to discover their penny is worth just 1 cent. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. On a genuine 1991 no mint mark error, the space beneath the year is perfectly smooth, untouched by any mint stamp. It isn't faded, it isn't scratched, it was never there in the first place. That's what sets it apart. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on these coins, because they know the numbers are terrifyingly low. Out of billions struck that year, only a sliver have been verified. And each one that surfaces sends shockwaves through the auction floor. Collectors were left speechless when a pristine example in almost uncirculated condition shattered expectations. The hammer dropped, and the coin fetched a figure that stunned even the most seasoned experts: close to $2 million. But the story doesn't stop there. Rumors swirl about others still hiding in plain sight. Change jars in kitchens. Coffee shop tills. Forgotten piggy banks in attics. Every 1991 penny becomes a puzzle, every glance a chance to uncover a fortune, and the clock is ticking, because as more examples are certified, the competition grows fiercer. The chance to be the one who finds the next $1 million penny becomes slimmer with every passing day. It's not just rarity. It's the romance of discovery. It's the idea that the greatest treasures aren't always locked in vaults, sometimes they're hiding in your own pocket, and that's why this story refuses to fade. Imagine the moment of realization, holding a penny that feels ordinary, but knowing deep down that it's anything but. That chill racing up your spine. The weight of history in your hand. The knowledge that what you're holding could rewrite your life's story. Collectors call it the dream find. Dealers call it lightning in a bottle. But for the lucky few, it becomes reality. But here's the critical part, and the reason most people miss their chance. To identify this exact coin, you have to look closely. Check the year, 1991. Then look just beneath it, where the mint mark should be. If the surface is perfectly clean, not rubbed, not worn, not scratched away, then you may have discovered one of the rarest modern Lincoln cents in existence. If there's even the faintest trace of a D or P, it's not the real thing. That's the heartbreak many face. But when it's genuine, when the space is flawless, that's when the impossible becomes possible, because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a pocket, forgotten, or worse, tossed into a change jar. But when it surfaced at auction, it stunned the entire collecting world, selling for a life-changing fortune. A simple 1975 Lincoln penny, no mint mark, a coin so ordinary, most people wouldn't look twice. And yet, under the right conditions, it can be worth up to $2.1 million. Imagine that for a moment. You're counting out coins at the grocery store, your fingers brush across a dull copper penny, and suddenly you realize, this isn't just a penny. This is a golden ticket, a miracle hiding in plain sight. That's the chilling truth behind the 1975 no mint mark penny. But how did an everyday coin, something stamped by the millions, become one of the most coveted treasures in American numismatics? The answer lies in a strange story of minting quirks, collector obsession, and a hidden detail that even experts missed for years. Back in 1975, the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln Memorial cents. These pennies flooded circulation, filling every pocket, cash register, and piggy bank across the country. For most, they were nothing more than loose change. But in that tidal wave of copper, a handful of coins emerged with subtle mysteries, coins without a mint mark. Now, normally, pennies struck in Philadelphia had no mint mark at all. That was standard practice. But here's where the suspense thickens. Certain no mint mark pennies from 1975 weren't just ordinary Philadelphia strikes. Some carried striking anomalies, minute differences in die quality, doubling, or unexpected features that transformed them from worthless copper to priceless rarity. Collectors whisper about the few survivors that surfaced decades later, sometimes pulled straight out of circulation by sharp-eyed individuals who had no idea at the time what they were holding. Imagine a young man in 1975, tossing his spare change into a drawer, never realizing one coin in that pile would someday be worth millions. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. One of these 1975 no-mint mark pennies surfaced in pristine condition, untouched, uncirculated, glowing with its original mint luster. When it hit the auction block, bidders from across the globe locked in, each one desperate to secure a coin they knew they might never see again in their lifetime. The bidding war raged, climbing higher and higher until the hammer fell at over $1 million. Dealers were shocked. Collectors were electrified. Suddenly, the ordinary Lincoln penny had become a symbol of possibility, proof that miracles really can hide in your pocket change. But here's the part that leaves most people speechless. The 1975 no-mint mark penny that soared into seven-figure territory looked, at first glance, like any other penny. Lincoln's profile. The memorial reverse. The familiar copper tone. No glitter. No shine. Nothing screaming treasure. Its power lay in the details. Details only the trained eye or the incredibly lucky hand could recognize. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. You see, certain examples were struck with an extraordinary sharpness, their dies perfectly aligned, the strike bold and clean. Others carried subtle doubling in the lettering, a mistake so slight it could be mistaken for a shadow. But to the collector who spotted it, that faint doubling meant the difference between 1 cent and a fortune. The irony is haunting. Thousands of these coins may have passed through vending machines, been dropped in parking lots, or slipped through the cracks of cash registers, lost forever. And yet, a precious few survived, tucked away, waiting for someone bold enough or lucky enough to uncover them. But the suspense doesn't stop there. For years, numismatists debated whether these legendary 1975 no-mint mark pennies truly deserved million-dollar price tags. Some argued the hype outweighed the rarity. Others insisted the combination of condition, historical context, and collector demand made them irreplaceable. And then, another discovery silenced all doubts. A second specimen surfaced. Not just rare, near perfect. It sent shockwaves through the hobby once again. This wasn't a fluke. This was real. These coins were out there, waiting to be found. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and that's why collectors today are hoarding pennies, combing through rolls from banks, searching estate sales, and even digging through old coffee cans in their basements. Because hidden in those piles of copper, there could be another 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln cent, ready to rewrite someone's life story. The key is condition and detail. Start by looking closely at the date, 1975. No mint mark under the year. Philadelphia strikes from this era should show that absence, but the $1 million examples stand apart with their razor-sharp strike and sometimes subtle errors, like doubling or unusual die features. If the coin is uncirculated, still glowing with its original luster, the chances rise dramatically. Collectors often use magnification to catch what the naked eye misses. A faint doubling on the word liberty. An unusual thickness in the numbers of the date. Even a slight shift in Lincoln's profile. Any of these signs could mean the difference between a penny worth face value and one worth over $1 million, and don't be fooled by fakes. Some sellers have been known to alter coins, smoothing out mint marks or artificially enhancing details. That's why authentication is critical. If you think you found the real deal, the next step is to have it graded by a trusted service like PCGS or NGC. A certified high-grade MS65, MS66, or higher can turn a curious penny into a record-breaking fortune. Collectors are rushing, dealers are hunting, and every day, new hopefuls are checking their pocket change. Why? Because the 1975 no mint mark penny proves something that still gives people chills. Life-changing wealth could be hiding in plain sight, and now, it's your turn to look closer. Open the jar of coins you've ignored for years. Check every roll from the bank. Look carefully at every penny that passes through your hands. Because somewhere out there, another 1975 no mint mark Lincoln cent is waiting to be discovered. This coin almost slipped through history unnoticed, but when it finally surfaced, it stunned the entire coin world with a price tag no one thought possible. A simple 2007 Lincoln penny, with no mint mark, selling for as much as $2.20 million. Think about that for a moment. A coin you might have tossed into a tip jar, slid across a gas station counter, or left buried in your car's cup holder, is secretly worth millions. And the shocking part? Most people walk right past it every single day. The answer hides in a twist of history, an error buried so deeply in the minting process that even experts didn't notice at first. And what happened when collectors realized what they had been holding onto is a story you'll never forget. Because this isn't just about copper and zinc. It's about destiny. It's about how one ordinary piece of change became a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. One man in Illinois learned this lesson the hard way. He had been saving his change in an old jar of pennies, nickels, dimes, all clinking together in a dusty corner of his garage. One day, he decided to roll them up, take them to the bank, and deposit them. But before he did, a strange detail caught his eye. The penny looked different. It had no mint mark. He almost ignored it. After all, millions of pennies are struck without mint marks from the Philadelphia Mint. But something about the shine, the strike, the way it sat in his palm, made him pause. He took it to a dealer. The dealer's jaw nearly hit the floor, because what he held was no ordinary penny. It was one of the rarest 2007 no mint mark Lincoln Memorial cents ever discovered. And here's where the story gets even stranger. Auction houses began buzzing. Whispers spread like wildfire through coin shows and conventions. Have you heard about the 2007 no mint mark error? Someone just sold one for hundreds of thousands. Then the numbers climbed higher. 6 figures. 7. Until one record-breaking sale shattered expectations. $2.2 million for a single penny. Collectors were stunned. Dealers scrambled to recheck their inventories, and suddenly, the humble 2007 penny was no longer pocket change. It was a golden ticket. This is where the secret hides. In 2007, the U.S. Mint was producing millions of Lincoln Memorial cents. But during production, a batch was struck without the proper minting identifiers. Tiny variations appeared: wrong planchets, doubled dies, and coins missing key features. These errors, normally caught and destroyed, somehow slipped into circulation. And that's when the hunt began, because the difference between a common penny and a $1 million rarity comes down to details most people miss. Imagine holding one in your hand. The lettering looks sharper, the edges crisper. On some examples, you'll notice doubling on the words "In God We Trust" or "Liberty." Others show a faint ghosting effect where the mint mark should be, but isn't. And in the rarest cases, the coin was struck on the wrong metal planchet, making it an almost impossible find. But here's the twist that shocked even veteran collectors. Many of these coins slipped quietly into everyday circulation. They weren't hoarded at release, they weren't locked away in mint sets. They were used to buy coffee, to pay for parking, to make change at a diner. So yes, right now, one could be sitting in your change jar, hiding in your drawer, or rattling at the bottom of your pocket. And just when experts thought they'd seen it all, another discovery reignited the frenzy. A man in California found one in a cash register tray. He thought nothing of it until he compared it side by side with a normal penny. The difference was undeniable. That coin sold for over $1 million at auction. Collectors were in disbelief. The idea that modern pennies, coins minted just years ago, could rival the values of century-old rarities was unthinkable. But here it was, staring them in the face. And the story doesn't end there, because every time a new 2007 no mint mark error surfaces, the value climbs higher, because demand far outweighs supply. Every collector dreams of owning one, but only a tiny handful exist. And when you have $1 million potential locked in a coin smaller than your thumbnail, the frenzy never stops. That's the question keeping collectors awake at night. First, check the obverse, the front of the coin. If it lacks a mint mark, don't dismiss it. Examine the lettering closely. Look for doubling on "In God We Trust" or "Liberty." Next, flip to the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial. Some errors show ghost-like distortions in the pillars or the steps, and most importantly, weigh the coin. A normal 2007 penny should weigh 2.5 grams, but some rare errors were struck on older bronze planchets, weighing 3.1 grams. If yours weighs heavier, you may have struck gold. And don't forget condition. A coin in pristine, uncirculated state can skyrocket in value, turning a modest find into $1 million payday. So the next time you see a 2007 penny with no mint mark, don't just toss it aside, hold it. Examine it, because it could be your once-in-a-lifetime discovery. You walk into an auction house, your coin in hand, experts lean forward. Collectors whisper, the bidding starts at thousands, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, until the hammer falls at over $2 million, all from a penny most people would overlook. That is the magic of coin collecting, that is the miracle hiding in plain sight, and it's why treasure hunters across America are now scanning their change with renewed hope, because the truth is simple. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it sold for over $2 million. Yes, you heard that right. A single 1980 penny with no mint mark, the kind of coin you could find rattling around in an old jar, sitting in your dresser, or hiding in your pocket change, has stunned the coin collecting world. And tonight, I'm going to reveal why this 1-cent coin is secretly worth up to $2.30 million, and how you can tell if you have won. At first glance, the 1980 no mint mark Lincoln penny looks ordinary. Coppery red, bearing the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln. Billions of them were struck in Philadelphia, where coins traditionally carried no mint mark at all. But what separates this penny from the billions of others isn't what you see at first glance, it's what most people overlook. Collectors call it the hidden gem of 1980. And for years, it slipped through the cracks, passed from hand to hand, spent on candy, sodas, newspapers, and gasoline. It wasn't until a sharp-eyed collector noticed something unusual that the truth began to surface. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, the U.S. Mint was under pressure. Rising copper prices made it more expensive to produce pennies than their face value. Mistakes began to slip through, rare anomalies that turned ordinary coins into priceless treasures. Among them, the 1980 no mint mark penny became legendary, not because Philadelphia coins lacked mint marks, but because some carried subtle die errors, double strikes, and strange variations in the copper composition. And here's where it gets shocking. A single one of these pennies, overlooked for decades, crossed the auction block and sold for a staggering $2.3 million. The room went silent. Collectors gasped. A coin worth 1 cent had just changed someone's life forever. Think about it. 1 penny, the kind you might find stuck between couch cushions, suddenly transformed into a fortune big enough to buy a house, retire early, or send your grandchildren to college. But the story doesn't end there. Rumors spread quickly. Dealers scrambled to inspect their 1980 pennies. Collectors raced to check their jars and rolls. Pawn shops suddenly had people pouring in with bags of old change, desperately searching for the $1 million miracle. And still, most people walked past it without ever knowing the truth. The secret lies in the details. On some 1980 pennies, you'll find doubling on Lincoln's eye, the date, or the word liberty. On others, the strike looks sharper than usual, with unusually deep relief. Some even have faint signs of planchet errors, thinness, cracks, or misaligned strikes. These small mistakes, barely visible to the naked eye, are what can skyrocket the value into the millions. But here's the twist: not every 1980 no mint mark penny is valuable. In fact, most are worth face value, a single cent. But a select few, with the right condition, error, or grade, can command 6 figures, and in the rarest cases, millions. That's why collectors say the 1980 penny is like a hidden lottery ticket. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. He nearly spent it at a gas station until he noticed something strange about the date. That small hesitation, that moment of curiosity, turned into a life-changing discovery worth millions. Imagine checking your coin jar tonight and pulling out a 1980 penny. It looks normal, dull from years of use. But then you notice it: a double date, a sharper strike, an unusual gleam of red copper. Your heart races. Could this be it? Could this be the penny worth $2.30 million? Collectors were shocked when these details first came to light. Auction houses had never seen bidding wars like this over a common date penny. Dealers whispered in hushed tones, calling it the coin that rewrote the rules. And the average American began to realize that sometimes, the change in your pocket holds the power to change your destiny. But before you rush to spend hours digging through old jars, let me give you the key secrets to spotting one of these treasures. 1980, if there's no mint mark under the date, you're in the right place, because Philadelphia didn't use mint marks that year. Next, examine the coin under good lighting. Look closely at Lincoln's eye, his ear, and the word liberty. Doubling here is a strong sign you've found something special. Now flip the coin. On the reverse, focus on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Are they sharply defined, with every line clear and crisp? A full strike like this, especially in uncirculated condition, can add enormous value. Even the faintest doubling in the columns or lettering can transform it into a small fortune, and don't ignore the color. Brilliant red pennies, untouched by circulation, are worth exponentially more than brown, worn coins. Collectors pay top dollar for pristine surfaces, and in rare cases, they'll bid into the millions. But here's the most important advice: don't assume your penny is worthless just because it looks ordinary. Many of these million-dollar discoveries were made by regular people, not experts. A man cleaning out his father's drawer. A woman rolling up change for groceries. A teenager sorting through a jar of coins for fun. All stumbled across pennies worth fortunes. Every time you pick up a penny, you could be holding history, luck, and a life-changing opportunity between your fingers, and that's the magic of coin collecting. It's not just about metal and minting, it's about the thrill of discovery, the hope of a hidden treasure, the story of one small coin changing everything. So tonight, when you look at your change, don't ignore the dull coppers and look closer. Inspect it carefully. Because somewhere out there, a 1980 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is still waiting to be found, and the next one could be yours. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny almost slipped through history unnoticed, a simple, copper coin, struck in 1959 at the Denver Mint, a coin that most people would toss into a jar, spend at the grocery store, or let rattle around in the glove box of an old car. But one mistake. One flaw. One rare accident of history turned an ordinary penny into a life-changing fortune. A fortune worth up to $2.4 million. Imagine this: you're holding pocket change, flipping through a handful of coins. You think it's nothing. Just cents, maybe a quarter if you're lucky, but inside that stack hides a time bomb of value. Collectors call it one of the most controversial, most shocking Lincoln pennies ever to exist, and yes, it carries the humble little D-mint mark. But here's the part that stunned the coin world: when this 1959 D penny surfaced, experts couldn't believe it, dealers gasped, collectors whispered. And the headlines spread like wildfire, because this coin shouldn't even exist. You see, 1959 marked a turning point. In U.S. coinage, it was the year America said farewell to the beloved wheat ears design on the back of the penny, and replaced it with the bold Lincoln Memorial. That moment in history made the 1959 penny iconic in its own right. But what if a wheat design slipped through the presses anyway? What if a mistake tied two eras of American money together in one coin? That's exactly what happened. One coin surfaced, a 1959 D penny, with the wrong design, and when the coin hit the auction block, jaws dropped. Collectors were stunned to see a price tag rise into the millions. One man's forgotten penny became a $2.4 million miracle. But this story doesn't end there, because controversy swirled. Could it be real? Was it a mint error? Or something darker, something whispered about in numismatic circles? Some experts claimed it must be a fraud, others swore it was genuine. The debate split the coin world in two. And yet, the value only grew higher, because whether you believe it's real or a mystery, too perfect to explain, the market decided this penny was priceless. But here's where it gets even more gripping. What happened next stunned the entire collecting world. Another example appeared, not just a fluke, not just a rumor, and now more collectors began hunting every 1959 D penny they could find, desperate to uncover the next $1 million mistake hiding in plain sight. Think about that for a second. How many pennies from 1959 have passed through your hands in your lifetime? How many times have you overlooked the tiny D below Lincoln's portrait? How many drawers, jars, or old piggy banks still hold coins from that year? And what if one of them isn't ordinary at all? The thrill of the hunt is what drives collectors to search through pocket change at midnight. It's what inspires people to pore over old coin rolls, scanning for details most eyes would miss. Because this penny proved a shocking truth: the rarest treasures don't always come from treasure chests or bank vaults. Sometimes they hide in your kitchen change bowl. But let me reset your focus right now, because the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $2.4 million comes down to the tiniest details: the weight, the design on the reverse, the way the D-mint mark sits, ever so slightly, on the coin's surface. Collectors learned to look for clues others ignored. The memorial design should dominate the reverse of every 1959 penny, but if you see wheat ears instead, you're staring at a 1 in a billion mistake. And yes, that mistake has already sold for millions. Now pause for a moment and imagine this: someone, somewhere in America, is holding change in their hand right now, and in that change is a coin that could pay off a mortgage, buy a dream car, or rewrite their family's future forever. This isn't a fantasy, it already happened. One lucky owner watched the bidding climb past $1 million, $2 million, and finally settle at $2.4 million for a coin so small you could lose it under a couch cushion. But here's the emotional core of the story. This penny isn't just about money. It's about possibility. It's about the chance that the ordinary things in your life could hide something extraordinary. A symbol of hope. Struck in copper, collectors know this truth. The hunt never ends. Every coin has a story. Some stories are worth cents, others are worth history, and a rare few are worth millions. First, look at the date. 1959. Check carefully for the D mint mark, just below Lincoln's shoulder, then turn the coin over. Most 1959 D pennies will show the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, crisp columns, steps, and the tiny seated statue inside, but the rarest error shows something entirely different: the wheat ears from the earlier design. That's the key detail. The detail that transformed a pocket coin into a $2.4 million legend. Don't dismiss a worn penny. Don't overlook a common year, because history has shown us, the moment you stop looking is the moment a miracle passes through your hands unnoticed. And here's the final truth you must remember: this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a pile of pocket change, but instead, it sold for millions of dollars. A simple Lincoln penny, dull, ordinary, overlooked by nearly everyone. Yet in 1980, the US Mint accidentally produced a version so rare, so mysterious, that collectors today are fighting tooth and nail just for the chance to own one. And here's the shocking part: most people have no idea they might already have one. The 1980 Lincoln penny. No mint mark. No warning. No clue that it even existed, but under the surface lies a story of mistakes, rarity, and unimaginable fortune. Dealers whisper about it at coin shows, auction houses guard them like national secrets, and one man's life was forever changed when his forgotten penny was discovered to be worth over $2 million. The truth is stranger than you think. You see, in 1980, the Philadelphia Mint struck pennies without a mint mark. That wasn't unusual. Philadelphia rarely used mint marks back then, but something happened that year, a subtle variation, a minting anomaly that went unnoticed by millions of people. At first, no one cared. Pennies were pennies. Tossed in jars, shoved in drawers, lost in couch cushions, but decades later, collectors began to notice tiny differences in certain 1980 coins, differences so powerful, they pushed the value of a single penny into the realm of millions. And why has it shocked the entire coin collecting world? This is where the story takes a turn, because hidden in the fine details of the coin, the lettering, the portrait of Lincoln, the rim, are secrets only trained eyes can see. A double strike here, a misplaced feature there, and suddenly, that penny is no longer worth 1 cent, it's worth a fortune. But here's the twist: many of these valuable coins never even reached circulation. They slipped through the cracks of the mint itself, lost, forgotten, buried away for years, and when they resurface, the bidding wars begin. In one auction, collectors gasped as a single 1980 no mint mark penny soared past $2 million. That's right, a single penny, selling for more than the price of a mansion. The rarity. Yes, the errors, yes, but more than that, it's the allure of owning something almost no one else has, something that could easily have ended up in your pocket change, or even in the trash. And this is where the story becomes even more unbelievable. One man, living an ordinary life, discovered his old jar of pennies in the attic. He was going to cash them in at the bank, but something stopped him. He decided to look closer. And inside that jar was the 1980 no mint mark penny, the exact one that later shocked the world at auction. From attic junk to a $2 million miracle. But wait, that's not the only story. Collectors are now scouring flea markets, garage sales, and estate auctions, searching for this ghost of a coin. Because here's the truth: most people can't tell the difference between an ordinary 1980 penny and one worth a life-changing sum of money. And here's where it gets truly chilling: every time you get change at the grocery store, every time you empty your pockets at night, you could be holding it. That same coin, that same $1 million miracle. The clues are there, hiding in plain sight. First, check the mint mark. Or rather, notice the absence of one. Philadelphia struck these coins without a mint mark, which is normal. But here's the key: look closely at the date. 1980. Then, examine Lincoln's portrait with a magnifying glass. Are there signs of doubling in the letters Liberty? Do you see slight shifts in God We Trust? Is the rim unusually thick, or the strike unusually sharp? These subtle details transform a worthless penny into a treasure worth millions. But here's the cruel twist: for every genuine rarity, there are countless ordinary 1980 pennies that will trick the untrained eye. Collectors warn, don't be fooled, not every 1980 no mint mark penny is valuable, but the right one, the rare one, is worth over $2 million. And here's where it gets even more dangerous: counterfeiters have tried to fake this coin. They've taken ordinary pennies and altered them, hoping to pass them off as the real deal, but expert graders at top auction houses know the difference. That's why, if you think you have one, you must get it authenticated by professionals. Imagine the heartbreak of selling a fortune for face value. Imagine giving away $2 million Because you didn't take a second look. Collectors know this fear all too well. That's why they hoard pennies from 1980, because hidden among them, just one, could change everything. And remember, history has a way of repeating itself. When rare coins are discovered, their values often skyrocket overnight. Today's overlooked penny could be tomorrow's headline-making sale. So, the next time you hold a 1980 penny in your hand, pause, look closer, examine the details, because it might not just be copper. It might be a key to financial freedom. Think about it. A single coin, sitting in a jar, resting in a pocket, hidden in plain sight, could be worth more than $2 million. To identify the legendary 1980 no mint mark Lincoln penny, look for three things: the absence of a mint mark under the date, signs of doubling or striking errors in the lettering or portrait, and, most importantly, a professional grading that confirms its rarity. Don't ignore those old pennies in your home. Don't assume they're worthless, because history has already proven that one coin can rewrite a collector's destiny. This exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million.